Welcome to the Orientation to Canada's Food Guide, presented by the BC Ministry of Health. This video will present a brief summary of the new federal dietary guidance with the hopes of promoting a consistent and coordinated approach to communication, integration, and implementation of the guidance in BC. We will begin with some background information on the new food guide, describe the evidence and engagement process, provide an overview of what's new with the food guide, and then finish with a summary and outline of next steps, including key contact information for any questions or comments you might have. The new Canada's Food Guide was released in January of 2019. This federal dietary guidance is an integral part of Health Canada's healthy eating strategy and is intended for healthy Canadians aged 2 years and older. For individuals with specific dietary requirements, including those receiving care in a clinical setting, Canada's dietary guidelines acknowledge that additional guidance or specialized advice from a registered dietitian may be needed. We will now walk through Health Canada's slides on the evidence and engagement process they followed throughout the revision of the food guide. Health Canada used their determination of the best available evidence to revise Canada's food guide. They reviewed high-quality scientific reports from authoritative scientific bodies such as the World Health Organization and considered only convincing findings. Industry-commissioned reports were excluded to avoid any real or perceived conflicts of interest. For more information on the evidence that formed the foundation of the new food guide, please refer to the link shown on this slide to find Health Canada's Evidence Review and Evidence Update reports from 2015 and 2018. The 2015 Evidence Review report describes Health Canada's evidence review process and summarizes findings from the review conducted from 2013 to 2015. Following publication of this report, Health Canada continued to review and assess emerging evidence from 2015 to 2018 so that the food guide would be based on the most recent evidence available at the time of launch. The findings from this subsequent review are summarized in the 2018 Interim Evidence Update report. The findings from the evidence review formed the foundation of Canada's dietary guidelines, a 62-page report for health professionals and policymakers that outlines healthy eating guidelines for Canadians. The evidence and policy direction were then translated and developed into key messages, tools, and resources for consumers. In addition to their review of the evidence, extensive consultations were conducted as part of the revision process. These included online public consultations with Canadians and interested stakeholders. Submissions received during the consultations were summarized and published by Health Canada in 2 What We Heard reports. Please follow the link shown on this slide to access these reports. In addition to public consultations, targeted consultations were also held with various groups and experts, such as provincial and territorial governments, academics, and Indigenous organizations. When Health Canada senior officials met with organizations to discuss the development of the food guide, details of these meetings were posted online at canada.ca. Materials shared during these meetings are publicly available and can be requested on Health Canada's website. Throughout the revision process for the new food guide, Health Canada officials did not meet with food industry representatives to discuss the food guide. So, what's new with Canada's food guide? The new Canada's Food Guide has replaced the old one-size-fits-all tool with a suite of online resources intended to better meet the needs of all Canadians. These resources are all housed on the Canada's Food Guide website. Canada's Dietary Guidelines for Health Professionals and Policymakers is the foundational healthy eating policy document to help meet the needs of policymakers and health professionals. The Food Guide Snapshot is a photographic visual depicting the key concepts of the food guide in words and images. Online, you will find there is content on life stage guidance, recommendations for settings such as school and work, tips on meal planning, videos, and recipes. You will also find the two evidence reviews published in 2015 and 2018. All of these resources together make up Canada's new food guide. The food guide is intended to be relevant and inclusive of all healthy Canadians 2 years of age and older. Through engagement with Indigenous academics, health professionals, and national Indigenous organizations, Health Canada has aimed to integrate Indigenous considerations throughout the guidance. Social, cultural, and historical factors that are determinants of healthy eating and may influence application of the guidance in Indigenous populations have been considered. Whereas in the past, there has been a separate food guide to support Indigenous peoples, this new food guide is intended to be inclusive. Now let's take a closer look at the new dietary guidelines for health professionals and policymakers. These guidelines support the development of policies, programs, and resources for Canadians, and also form the basis of the consumer resources available through Health Canada's web-based application. The guidelines aim to promote healthy eating and overall nutritional well-being, moving away from a prescriptive approach to serving sizes and numbers toward a broader, more flexible approach to healthy eating. The Dietary Guidelines Report presents 3 guidelines, along with a section to discuss the implementation of the guidelines. Considerations are also presented for each guideline, providing complementary guidance on specific issues while recognizing the context within which Canadians live, learn, work, and play. The healthy eating recommendations are a translation of the dietary guidelines for the general public. As this is the first food guide in Canada to recognize that healthy eating is about more than the foods you eat, there is guidance provided within the healthy eating recommendations on when, where, why, and how people eat. The food guide's healthy eating recommendations include the following 4 primary messages that help foster healthy eating behaviors. Be mindful of your eating habits, cook more often, enjoy your food, and eat meals with others. The online resources provide tips and guidance to support these behaviors. The food guide's healthy eating recommendations also include the following key messages to support healthy food choices. Eat plenty of vegetables and fruits, whole grain foods, and protein foods. Protein foods include eggs, lean meats and poultry, nuts and seeds, fish and shellfish, lower fat dairy products, beans, peas, and lentils, and fortified soy beverages, tofu, soybeans, and other soy products. Additionally, when choosing protein foods, it is recommended to choose plant-based, or those that come from plants, more often. The second message is to limit highly processed foods both at home and when eating out. Examples of these include sugary drinks, chocolate and candies, ice cream and frozen desserts, fast foods like French fries and burgers, frozen entrees like pasta dishes and pizzas, bakery products like muffins, buns, and cakes, and processed meats like sausages and deli meats. If these foods are chosen, it should be less often and in small amounts. Next, water is recommended as the drink of choice instead of sugary drinks. The final 2 messages are to use the information available on food labels to make healthier choices and to be aware of how food marketing can influence food choices. The Food Guide Snapshot is a 2-page, at-a-glance translation of the dietary guidelines and healthy eating recommendations. The snapshot presents the messages outlined in the previous 2 slides. When viewing the Food Guide Snapshot online, consumers can click on the healthy eating messages to be taken to subsequent pages that provide the rationale for the messages, as well as tips and resources that are relevant. Previous food guides were based around the concept of food groups. In the new food guide, however, those food groups have been replaced by groupings of food, specifically vegetables and fruit, whole grains, and protein foods. The snapshot depicts a variety of nutritious foods, which were chosen based on considerations including alignment with the dietary guidelines, reflection of a range of cultures, relevance to Indigenous peoples in Canada, foods that are commonly produced in Canada, as well as cost, as many of the healthy foods depicted on the plate are available as frozen, dried, or canned options. These foods are displayed on a plate to showcase the proportions that are recommended for each grouping of food. This provides a visual guideline for how to balance a meal. Note that the nutritious foods recommended by Canada's Food Guide are not limited to those represented on the snapshot, and many more examples can be found on the Food Guide website. As mentioned earlier, the Food Guide is all of the resources discussed here put together. The snapshot exists as a visual representation of some of the main concepts, but to get the complete picture of healthy eating, Canadians are encouraged to visit online and look at a variety of the resources provided. This is an important difference from the past Food Guide, where the information needed was largely contained on a single document. Let's look at an example. This screenshot on this slide shows where someone would land if they clicked on the Eat Protein Foods message on the Food Guide snapshot. At the top, it lists the key nutrients provided by protein foods, and below that, it provides an extensive list of protein foods that are not seen on the plate, but are still considered healthy options, such as lower fat milk, shrimp, and sunflower seeds. If someone continued to scroll down on this webpage, they would also see tips on different ways of trying and preparing protein foods, including snack and meal ideas. The Food Guide website also includes a life stage guidance section that highlights healthy eating tips for teens, parents, adults, and seniors. As mentioned previously, the Food Guide is intended for healthy individuals over 2 years of age. Additional information on prenatal nutrition and for infants up to 2 years of age, to whom the Food Guide does not apply, is available in the documents referenced here on this slide. The last part of the dietary guidelines for health professionals and policymakers addresses the considerations for implementation of the guidelines. This includes the creation of supportive environments that provide the opportunity for healthy eating. We know that many British Columbians are challenged with the affordability of healthy eating, which impacts their ability to maintain a healthy diet. Cost of eating was taken into consideration in the development of this food guide. For example, while the guidance emphasizes eating plenty of vegetables and fruits and choosing plant-based protein foods more often, more affordable yet still nutritious options are included in the recommendations, such as frozen, canned, or dried foods. The guidelines speak to the importance of identifying barriers to accessibility and availability of nutritious foods and determining the most appropriate interventions. Certainly, the very nature of providing recommendations on what and how to eat to achieve best health highlights inequities. Now, with the new guidance as a standard, it is the responsibility of all of government to consider public policies, for example, those related to income assistance, poverty, and provision of service in rural and remote communities, to ensure all Canadians can follow the diet recommended by Health Canada. We will now provide a summary of the new food guide and outline the next steps for implementation in British Columbia. As discussed, Canada's Food Guide is an online suite of resources to promote healthy eating that are founded in Health Canada's determination of the best available evidence. Canada's Food Guide has moved away from a prescriptive approach to healthy eating toward one that is based on the proportionality of healthy food choices. The new food guide has also embraced that healthy eating is about more than what we eat. It is about where, when, why, and how we eat. This concludes Health Canada slides providing an overview of the new Canada's Food Guide. In terms of what's still to come, Health Canada will be looking at the enhancement of resources on an ongoing basis. In addition, Health Canada is currently determining what further guidance may be needed for health professionals and policymakers on amounts and types of food for specific populations and settings. In addition to using the new food guide, guidance provided within the 2007 food guide can continue to be used if it aligns with the current guidance. For example, the recommendation from the Pediatric Nutrition Guidelines to offer 2 cups of milk or fortified soy beverage a day to children aged 2 to 6 aligns with the current food guide and can continue to be used. Supplementation recommendations included in the 2007 Food Guide can also continue to be used at this time. While the new Food Guide was developed to be relevant to and inclusive of all Canadians, the Government of Canada is working with national Indigenous organizations as well as regional Indigenous partners to determine what, if any, other resources are needed to support use of the dietary guidance for Indigenous peoples. The BC Ministry of Health is committed to supporting the connection between Health Canada and Indigenous partners within BC to facilitate this process moving forward. In terms of print resources, Health Canada has made selected Food Guide resources available in printed format. Individuals and organizations can order the Snapshot, as well as promotional posters, from the Health Canada Publications website. Individuals who are unable to access Health Canada's resources through their website can access print copies of the Snapshot and the healthy eating recommendations through HealthLink BC by calling 811. Translations of the Snapshot are also anticipated in over 20 languages. As the new Food Guide has significant implications for provincial and regional policies and practice related to healthy eating within BC, the Prevention and Health Promotion Policy Advisory Committee has endorsed the formation of a time-limited task group to coordinate implementation. This task group is being established with the Office of the Provincial Dietitian at the BC Ministry of Health and Population Public Health, BC Centre for Disease Control at the Provincial Health Services Authority as co-chairs. The task group will support coordinated and consistent implementation of the Food Guide within provincial and regional policies and practice over the next 2 years. Finally, as the dietary guidelines acknowledge that individuals with specific dietary requirements may need additional guidance from a dietitian, BC has Dietician Services at HealthLink BC, which offers nutrition information, education, and counseling to British Columbians via the web, phone, and by email. The HealthLink BC website provides a wealth of resources and information about healthy eating, including information to complement the new Food Guide. For example, handouts on food sources of calcium and vitamin D and other topics. Registered dietitians are available by phone or email. Members of the public, as well as health professionals, can call 811 Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. to speak with a dietitian, or email questions 24/7 to the email address provided here. Besides providing nutrition services directly, HealthLink BC dietitians are also able to help connect clients with nutrition services in the community, including in settings such as outpatient clinics, private practice, and others. Connecting to services in the community can also be done through the HealthLink BC website. The HealthLink BC directory lists health services provided throughout the province, including services offered through the health authorities such as walk-in clinics and hospitals, as well as nonprofits. Users can visit the HealthLink BC website and search the directory by keyword, for instance, dietitian, as well as by geographic location to find services near them. Health service navigators are also available 24/7 by dialing 811 to help with finding health services across BC, including connecting clients with a registered dietitian. Health Canada encourages questions or comments about the development of the Food Guide and its related resources. These may be directed to Health Canada's Office of Nutrition Policy and Promotion at nutrition@hc-sc.gc.ca. Questions or comments on the integration and implementation of the Food Guide in BC may be directed to the Provincial Food Policy Dietitian at HealthLink BC at foodpolicy@gov.bc.ca.